YouTube Ozick going. The Goat House is back after Week 8's Sunday action in the NFL. Some crazy action. A lot of interesting outcomes. We'll break it down, give you my takeaways. Trade deadline tomorrow, Tuesday the 3rd. Right before going to record this, we had 2 trades go down. Saints made a deal for Quan Alexander. Titans made a deal for Desmond King. We're going to be talking about it on Twitter. And then we'll make videos too. But the trade deadline is going to be crazy. We got videos covering the trade deadline. But let's get to these takeaways real quick. But 60K, that's our subscriber goal. Please help us get there. Almost there. Follow our Twitter for constant NFL talk, talking during live games, Instagram, podcast, Patreon. A lot going on. The Patreon has even more content linked down below. Junior score predictions, my bets of the week, NFL, college football, updated playoff predictions. Always adding more. There's a lot more than that. So check it out. Be much appreciated. Patriots and Bills. I kind of want to fast forward first and we'll come back a little bit, but I'm trying to make this video, I always say this, I'm trying to make this video quicker, especially with the trade deadline going on, so we're going to try. But fast forward to the end, before the Bills, take the lead, getting 24 points there off that field goal, they actually had a touchdown on third down. Gabriel Davis couldn't come up with it. Maybe not the easiest catch in the world, but he couldn't really come up with it. So field goal instead of touchdown. And it's mainly been a defensive game, up until, recent at that point. Both teams kind of moving the ball, kind of scoring. So it's a little scary. Are the Patriots going to be able to move the ball and punch it in the end zone with no time left? It was kind of in the back of my mind going into that drive. And then it's happening. Cam's still able to run. They're throwing pretty well. Doesn't look like last week's Cam. He's able to throw the ball, pretty well. Nothing crazy. But he looks much better. And then, they march down the field, and then Cam fumbles the ball. Justin Zimmer, what a find for the Buffalo Bills. He's probably the only bright spot. I think the first game he played with them in the Titans game, and he's been pretty damn solid on the D-line for them. So that's an impressive dude right there, and an impressive find for the Bills. He forces the fumble. Cam lets it loose there, and that's the ball game, and they were knocking on the door. It felt like the Patriots were going to score. It felt like they were going to score, so you could say the Bills were, unlucky, Gabriel Davis dropping the ball, and then they could have said they got pretty lucky there forcing that fumble. So pretty wild game at the end. Was kind of boring the rest of the way. Running backs had a pretty good game in this game. You look at Damian Harris had a really good game for the Patriots, and you look at both Moss and Singletary able to run pretty well. Moss punching in the end zone, so it's good to see Moss starting to take off, the solid rookie from Utah. So that was good to see. Kind of weird, though, for the Bills because Josh Allen didn't throw the ball a whole bunch, but I felt like they could have. He did throw the interception, but I don't know, it's just a weird game. I guess all the reps on offense went to the running game because Josh Allen did take off quite a bit. Pretty sure Moss and Singletary both had, 14, 15, 16 carries, somewhere around there each. So I guess that's where the reps went, but I almost feel like, where's all the reps though? You kind of think about that, like where's the, could have been more passing plays. There could have been more here. And then Damian Harris, I mentioned, ran pretty damn well for the Patriots. So Bills defense still, giving up big, chunk plays here, marching down the field like that. I guess a lot of clock came off due to both teams doing that. Both sides, both quarterbacks running the ball as well. So I guess that drained the clock, and I guess that took away reps from the teams. But the Bills escape. Tight game. No Stephon Gilmore. Maybe a little more confident in the Bills, but this was a scary one at the end. The Patriots had a legit shot. If Cam Newton didn't fumble, you'd think their chances were pretty decent at least to take the win there. But yeah, definitely a scary one for the AFC East battle. But yeah, Cam looked better. A million times different than last week. It's a tough team to predict because which team's going to show up there? I guess the Bills are now too. They haven't looked nearly as good as they did the first few weeks. Even in wins, they got 2 games in a row they won, but still, they haven't really looked the same. There's not as much, and that's why I like them too. The first few weeks, there was such a variety of plays, different plays, and teams didn't know what was coming at them. I'm not really seeing that now in terms of the play calls, the play style. So that's something I've noticed. I don't know, but it's a huge win. Doesn't really matter how they got it, but it was a pretty huge win. Impressed with that Justin Zimmer guy. Good find there for the Bills. Impressed with Zach Moss as well. Titans-Bengals, a shocker. I talked about this could be a trap game. I picked the Titans to win, but I talked about it. It could be a trap game. Why? Because the Bengals push the ball. They can push the ball on offense, and they're especially able to push the ball at a higher level if there's not much of a pass rush in their face, which usually there is. But the Titans have been one of the worst teams in pass rush this year, and that actually kind of happened. That was kind of a big reason here. The Bengals kind of converting on third down, converting. The Titans been terrible on third down, but I think that resulted in long, lengthy, clock-draining drives, and I think that was the difference here. There could have been a lot more offense in this game, 31-20. I mean, 31's, that's a bit of offense, but I think the Bengals putting together those drives like that, kind of forced that, and they took a page out of the Steelers book, and there's some similarities with the Bengals offense to the Steelers offense, with the long list of receivers they got and just quick throws. I think the pass rush is bad for the Titans, but I think a big reason I talked about it last week is the ball is coming out so quick. Why? Because the coverage is just so bad. So, they're playing really soft coverage and there's just so much separation instantly. Just can't have that. Well, the Titans just traded for Desmond King. They might get Adoree Jackson back, so things could definitely change. It's quite the big difference there in who's playing corner for them if Jackson does come back and if Desmond King gets on the field here in a decent time. But yeah, that was the difference, just converting and creating long drives. Bernard, he didn't do a whole bunch, but he did enough, for them. Missing Joe Mixon, they're better with Joe Mixon probably, but, it wasn't really a factor. But receivers coming up clutch for the Bengals. The Titans just odd, that they had 7 points for a lot of this game. It was bad. It felt like, they had a chance to, I'm not going to call it garbage time where they got those points. Because they might have had a chance. I hate the term, garbage time too, but some people may consider it that, and I'm not really going to debate with you on that. You could argue it, but they had a chance to come back, I suppose, at one point, so I'm not really going to call it that. But my point is, it felt like when it really mattered, they had about 7 points in this game, which maybe 14, which was odd. They just couldn't get offense. Huge Arthur Smith fan, was not a fan in this game. Derrick Henry was working, and it's tough. It's tough because Derrick Henry was working, but it was draining the clock. And when the Bengals had the ball, they were draining the clock. So, at some point, we got to throw the ball here. But Derrick Henry was working, and I think if you stuck to that earlier before it got out of hand, you could have been more in the game or could have won the game. Credit to the Bengals secondary locking it down in coverage. Jesse Bates, huge Jesse Bates fan. He might be the best safety in football this year. I was a huge fan of him out of Wake Forest. Love to see him balling in the back end. I think that main piece of that defense, I think that center field playmaking free safety, I think is what makes this defense here. But the whole coverage in general did a really good job. They weren't getting tons of pressure, but I think they were helping making the pocket collapse earlier. So that's something that go unnoticed. So the Bengals defensive line there. So Tannehill kind of had to throw the ball when he was a little tight. Yeah, that early red zone interception by Jesse Bates, good play by him. Bad decision by Ryan Tannehill, uncharacteristic. That was costly. That was a big play in this game. There was some bad calls in this game, and I see Titans fans complaining about it, and they have a right to complain about it. There was some rough calls in this one that I don't really agree with, but the Bengals outplayed them. These calls, I don't think decided the game. The Bengals just completely outplayed them. I think on both sides of the ball, which is crazy. We knew it was kind of a trap game. The Bengals are much better in their record too. They could easily have a few more wins here, which is crazy. So yeah, you don't have to be happy with the refs, but the Bengals won this game because they outplayed them. The helmet to helmet on Humphreys, yeah, it probably should be called, but you're not going to see me ever complaining like, wow, we should have scored points there because the other team did. It's one of those ones where I can debate all day on it. Yeah, maybe it should have been called, but you can't say, you didn't earn points because that should have been called or should have earned points because of that. That's the way I look at it. But yeah, again, I don't like the officiating this game, but it didn't decide the game. The Bengals played a hell of a game. Titans, 2 in a row for them. 2 in a row, that's tough. They got the Bears next week, another team that lost 2 in a row, so we're going to see what's going to happen with that one. Raiders and Browns. If I would have said that the Raiders were going to win scoring 16 points, I probably would have got ripped a new one. 22 total points in this game is mind-blowing. Yes, it was windy. Yes, it was pretty cold, but it's mind-blowing. It's also windy and cold for the defenses as well. I know wind is more of a factor when the ball's in the air, but two teams that I don't really like their defenses and two teams that I kind of like their offenses. And, 16-6. So pretty wild here. It felt like teams were able to move the ball to midfield pretty easily. The Browns were moving really, really well early. They ended up having that turnover. I think that costed some things. Jarvis Landry dropped a wide open first down early in the game. That kind of hurt them. Little plays like that in a 16-6 game will be the difference. Jarvis Landry almost had it. It was a tough catch, but then the ball ended up hitting the ground at one point. Little plays like this could have been the difference in this game. It was mainly Josh Jacobs and Kareem Hunt. Jacobs ran pretty well. Still haven't been super, excited about him this year, what he's able to do. They were, before they got 16, they had 13 points. They obviously kicked a field goal. I think they could have, kind of put the game away, but they're going to for sure put the game away if they punched it in. Josh Jacobs from the 3-yard line decides to jump to the end zone. Not a good idea on all levels, but just couldn't punch the ball in. And I don't know if you can really blame the offensive line in that situation. So I wish you would, just little plays like that. I think Jacobs could be better and a little disappointing. But Carr was pretty accurate with the ball. There's just not a lot in this game. Not a lot. I don't know. It's weird because I don't know if the defenses did anything spectacular either. I think receivers were getting open. They were beating, I think just, I don't know. It's not, I guess, not enough big plays from the offense, but it's just a weird game. And, I guess running the ball ran the clock, but some plays left out in the field for the Browns. But mainly I talked about the ones for the Browns, but for the Raiders too. Ruggs had that touchdown. It was a good throw, good play design. Ruggs has been another one. He's kind of been disappointing. I know he was hurt for a bit, but he's good for about 2 catches a game, and he should have scored on that. That was one of those situations where just catch the ball and your feet will be in, and he took that. It's almost harder to step out on that one, and it was debatable. Some people got shots of his foot being in. I don't know, but either way, no matter if it's in or out, that was bad. Making that stride and just, again, I really feel like it was easier to keep your feet in than to do what he did. And it's not like he's a lengthy, long stride type of guy, so that was extremely disappointing. He's just got to get in on that. So missed opportunities on offense, so that would be the reason for less scoring, I suppose. Again, I don't think the defenses did, that, a whole bunch. It's just another one of those weird games. I expect this to be an absolute shootout. I don't care what the weather was. I don't really care. I expect this to be a shootout. Raiders get it done. I did expect the Raiders to win. OBJ, the Browns missed OBJ. People were talking about, again, I know that's different. People were talking about Baker might be better with OBJ. I think it's complete nonsense. Not to knock Baker in this game, really, but the Browns are better. People were saying Baker was better without OBJ, but let's be honest, the Browns in general are better with OBJ. If you think otherwise, it's just, I don't know, mind-blowing. I don't know. Strange game. I don't know what else to say about it, to be honest. Colts, Lions, 41-21. Typical Lions game. They start off looking pretty good here. They start off looking pretty good, and that's every week. They start off up. Colts are looking a little shaky here. Just giving the ball to Lions right away. Lions making big plays. So they're up early, but then the Colts start to get together. Then they start to get together, and they hit 41 points was just pretty surprising there. I knew the Lions would score around 20, but I think credit to the Colts. I mean, you got to credit the Colts defense there for stepping up. You see Darius Leonard back in the defense. I think that just makes everyone around. You see how good he is. Because he makes everyone around him better. You see guys like Tyquan Lewis getting after the quarterback. Guys are finally getting after the quarterback. Darius Leonard being there. You see Darius Leonard getting. I think that strip sack for Darius Leonard was really the big play of the game. They were up at that point, but. And they got comfortable too. They started off sloppy, then they got back up, and then the Colts got control of this game. It's 20-7. And the Lions kind of got back into it. They look like they're even without Kenny Galladay, they were making plays. Marvin Hall making plays, and they were right back in it. Like, oh, here we go, Colts. Got to stay consistent. But then Darius Leonard makes that strip sack. That was huge at that time, absolutely huge. For him. So you see how good he is at getting after the quarterback. He's an off-the-ball linebacker, but every category, and then making players around him better. They're able to get after the quarterback as well because of the presence of Darius Leonard. So credit to him. Kenny Moore got that pick six, bad throw by Stafford. Stafford's good for a few of those a season where it's a really bad, I don't know if it's exactly an out route, but it's to the sideline. He's good for a few of those a year, and those are bad, so I think I talked about this. I think not being able to move outside the pocket and make that throw easier is costly. So I think the lack of athletic ability there in today's, for today's NFL could be costly. I think you need a quarterback that can definitely move around, throw on the run. Stafford said he has a heck of an arm, don't get me wrong, but yeah, and then for the Colts, Nyheim Hines had a big day. The guy they need to get the ball in his hands more because what he can do, he's just freaky athletic. You can't coach those things, just give him the ball. It feels like he's their best receiver. I know T.Y. Hilton got hurt in this game, but it felt like he was their best receiver. And surprisingly, it was a Jordan Wilkins day, not a Jonathan Taylor day. Taylor couldn't really get anything going, didn't have a lot of opportunities, but had some. Couldn't really get too much going. Wilkins didn't look like he was doing anything special either. Maybe they were more unpredictable with Wilkins on the field. I want Hines to keep Hines going. It's like every other week with it, or maybe they take 2 weeks off. You see the first week he went off too. So I want him to get going with that a bit more there. But yeah, they clutched up. I just want the Colts, and they scored 41 points. It was a great game. But yeah, kind of sloppy, a little sloppy moments here and there. If they put a full game together, it's a damn scary team. And it's a big win because the upcoming part of their schedule the rest of it's pretty tough. A lot of high-powered offensive teams they're playing. So what can they show us there? So a little bit different matchup. Let's see if they can take care of business. But yeah, I like what I saw in this game for the Colts. That Darius Leonard play was the game-changing play there. Lions were on a little bit of a streak. Thought they can get another step, further along that streak, but that's a tough one. I think Romeo Okwara has been playing pretty well. I got to credit somebody on the Lions here. I think he's been stepping it up the last few weeks. They couldn't really get the running game going. They didn't really want to get the running game going. I know it's tough to run the Colts, but to completely abandon it, I don't know if I really agree with that. I know they were up right away though. So where was I don't know. They were up, but then they kind of blew it, and then they were back in the game, and they started running the ball. I guess a tricky defense. The passing game was kind of working, but then it wasn't because the strip sack and the pick. So it was just some tough plays there. Yeah, it's just the Lions. It's the Lions for you. Next, the Vikings and the Packers. I think this has got to be the most shocking one of the day. I know the score line of the Raiders-Browns was up there. The Bengals beating the Titans, even though we thought that could be a trap game. I think this is the most surprising one because of what went on within this game, or I think what happened with this game. Cook being Dalvin Cook being Dalvin Cook wasn't really a surprising part, but Kirk Cousins didn't throw the ball over 10 yards one time, and they won the game. Like if you'd have said Kirk Cousins doesn't need to throw the ball over 10 yards one time, you just think it's mind-blowing. How are you going to keep up with the Packers doing that? What the Vikings had on defense because of injuries, they had practice squad guys. They were running out of corners. They had to put a 7th-round practice squad safety at slot corner, just in no pass rush, absolutely no pass rush. The pass rush made plays here and there, but they were mainly coverage sacks or Rodgers not getting rid of the ball. He had plenty of time. He usually has a ridiculous amount of time because Bakhtiari's that good, but he maybe had less time than he normally does, but he still had plenty of time. With that pass rush on, and what the Vikings had on the field in this game on paper, this was the worst defense in football in Week 8 on paper. It didn't really play like that, so that's why it's just mind blowing that the Packers couldn't do more on offense. They couldn't put up more. I know the Vikings, and they got big chunk plays with Cook, though. I was going to say they ran the ball, so that runs the clock, but they got big chunk plays with Cook, so that's not like they're draining so much clock. In the Packers against this defense, you think they would be able to drain all this clock and then put the ball in the end zone. So I don't know what to blame more for the Packers. You got to rip them. Everyone's got to rip them on all stages here. That they were not able to do that, to run the clock and get the ball in the end zone more like they should have been able to do against this defense. But I know Dalvin Cook is Dalvin Cook, but not being able to do better against the run. I know the Packers aren't that good against the run, but this was next level bad. The holes that the Vikings offensive line was opening up just don't happen. They just don't happen. In a lot of those holes because the linebackers were, I don't know what they were getting fooled by. That's the thing, sometimes you get fooled by read option. Does the quarterback have it? Misdirection, but that wasn't the case here. They were pretty simple handoffs, and the linebackers were just flooding the wrong holes and taking on blocks rather than the linemen doing a great job. And the Vikings offensive line played a good game, don't get me wrong, but, I was watching some of these plays back, the big Cook runs. I don't know what these linebackers are doing. The defensive line, needs to be better as well, but I don't know what these linebackers were doing. I really have no idea. So that's a problem. Trade deadline approaching, but something you knew that Cook was going to have a big game, and you knew, and it doesn't need to be that bad, but you knew. So the offense, there's really no excuse for the offense here. There's really no excuse. And it almost felt like they had a chance at the end, but it almost felt like this game really wasn't even this close. The Vikings had pretty much they had control of the entire game, which was wild. Again, Kirk Cousins not needing to throw. I mean, it's wild. I still can't understand it, because what was stopping them from? There was nothing really stopping the Packers from pushing the ball more. I think they doubled Devontae Adams. I mean, Eric Kendricks, Harrison Smith had a great game. They got those studs out there, but no pass rush, no corners. I mean, what's the problem here? What's the problem? They couldn't really convert, and they had a lot of fourth down attempts. They actually converted some, one with 12 men on the field. There was one that they were about to convert because of pass interference on Anthony Harris, and then they picked up the flag. It's definitely debatable. I don't like when they call things and then pick it up. Like, what made you change your mind in there? It was definitely a debatable one. There wasn't a lot of contact, but there was contact. But the ball looked like, it looked like the target wasn't really going to make a good play on the ball. It looked like it was going to end up being behind him. So it was definitely debatable. If it was up to me, you saw it, so you threw the flag. So probably keep that. But that doesn't change the fact the Vikings are nowhere near as good as the Packers this year. We all know that, but they outplayed them by a decent amount in this game. So that doesn't really change that. But yeah, it's crazy seeing how good Dalvin Cook is. The vision, the burst through the hole, and what he can do after the hole. So it was good to have him back. For the Vikings there. Obviously, the credit to their offensive line. Kirk was accurate, but he didn't have to do much. He should be accurate in that game. The tackling for the Packers once again is a big problem. I just don't know. I don't know who to blame more, because I keep kind of going back to that. It's a game that it makes me iffy on the Packers, a game like this, because the Bucs game was just a bad matchup. They got pressure, that's why they won the game, and the Bucs got a pretty damn good offense as well. But why do you lose this game? And most people they're gonna say Dalvin Cook, but that's not losing to one player, which I don't think was the case, but that's not a good thing here. So I'm trying to figure out we can sit here and say what the problems are, but I think there's almost too many of them in a game like this that they absolutely should win, and that makes a lot of us, I think, really come down on the Packers. So I don't know. That's one that sticks in your mind, like how and why. Didn't think that one was going to happen. Did not think that one was going to happen. The Vikings, is that good or is that bad? Because maybe they don't make deals at the deadline anymore. Maybe they believe they can win, and you don't really blame a team for having confidence. But really, what are they going to do? This was more of I don't want to say fluke, because Dalvin Cook's not a fluke whatsoever, but it's pretty close to like a fluke game. This is not something that the defense won't be able to hold up like this. Especially against a guy like Aaron Rodgers, where they don't really see him again. But I don't know. It's a weird one. Do I have to talk about this one a lot? Chiefs, Jets. Chiefs take care of business. Patrick Mahomes is, there's some people that get sick of people talking about Patrick Mahomes and the plays he makes. It's just weird, because he continues to make these plays that we've seen over and over again from him, but he just continues to wow. Like, it continues. You think when you see something, enough, like, it's not going to impress anymore, but it just continues to impress. Some of the throws he makes, it just continues to happen. It continues to make. That was the difference. The Chiefs just being that much better. The Chiefs really couldn't get a run game going. I thought they were going to force feed Le'Veon Bell. That didn't end up being the case. They kind of ran it up here. Big gains for Travis Kelce, Tyreek Hill when it mattered there. Jets just didn't have enough speed. They just don't have enough talent, really. I don't say speed. They just don't have enough talent in general. I don't really know what else to say about this game. It's not a game I focused on a whole bunch. So if you were looking forward to me talking in depth about this game, I apologize. But the Jets. Denzel Mims got to get him the ball more, because he's a big time playmaker down the sideline. 2 catches down the sideline, I think, on 3 targets. Just Darnold. That's what I don't like here. Darnold's. That's what I don't like about Darnold in general. Like, there's time where his bad turnovers, he's not a guy that has like an insane amount of turnovers. I think he has potential to have an insane amount of turnovers, but where he's not good is, he has the turnovers at the bad time where he kind of just throws it up for grabs. But then there's moments where you almost just want him, just throw it up for grabs, one-on-one, Denzel Mims or whoever. Like, you have nothing to lose here. So it only comes at the bad moments. Just couldn't really get anything going. I think he had about a 4.5 average, 4.4 average per throw, which is bad. It's just not enough. This is not enough for that team, so I don't know. I don't know what else to say about the game. Rams and Dolphins, one quarterback threw for 300 and, top of my head, 55 yards, and the other quarterback threw for 98 yards. I mean, pretty hilarious. I'm actually going to check it if that was the exact numbers. Was that the exact numbers? I'm wasting time. 355, 93. I almost got it. 90. Tua Tagovailoa debut, threw for 93 yards against Jared Goff, who threw 355. Who won the game? The other team, the team that threw for 93. I'm not a big fan of calling it garbage time, but you could say Goff got all those yards, in that time. But you get my point. And it's mainly crediting the Dolphins team and defense in general. Quarterback only needed to, throw, similar to the Vikings. The quarterback only needed to, throw the ball that much, and they still won. It's ridiculous. This Dolphins defense, we talk about the Rams defense, how good it is. How about the Dolphins defense, top of the NFL right now? Ridiculous. It's a unique defense. They're setting pass rush from different, you don't know where it's coming from. And I think that's kind of that Patriots tree, that Flores factor, Kyle Van Noy, getting in there as well. I actually, there's some things that I said that could happen in this game that I thought would happen. I thought Goff would turn the ball over, but I thought the defense would kind of clutch up and stop them, and then they make plays themselves, and the offense making a little more plays while turning the ball over. So some of that was true, actually, but I didn't expect them to score twice on the turnovers. I didn't expect that many turnovers from the Rams, so that was the difference there. I guess scoring or getting close to scoring on those turnovers for the Dolphins defense. So, that was the difference. Dolphins didn't do a whole bunch of offense. They didn't really need to. I think they had big plays when they needed to. Devontae Parker had a nice touchdown there against a really tight coverage. Good defense there. Aaron Donald got a strip sack early, so you thought that could be the turning point of the game. But this Dolphins defense, you don't joke around with this Dolphins defense. It's really, really good, and it's one of those ones where they have disguises. They don't know what you're throwing. There, it's tough to game. I don't know if there is game planning for it. It's just got to go out and you got to execute. Very poor game from Goff. Didn't have a lot of time to throw sometimes, but a very poor game, just throwing it up for grabs. Just very poor decisions. So that was kind of holding the Rams back. They still, they started to push back a little bit, but if they would have hit that field goal, maybe they would have had some sort of shot there because it's an 8-point game. But, I mean, the Dolphins defense went out there and won it, and then them actually scoring on defense and, making plays. That's just my takeaway from the game. I love this Dolphins defense, and Brian Flores is a hell of a coach, and it's a tough defense to game plan. Emmanuel Ogbah's having a hell of a season. I really liked him at Oklahoma State. He was a little underwhelming. First, he was a solid player, I suppose, but him getting together, I love to see that. Christian Wilkins is a monster there. Jerome Baker's everywhere. That's the guy maybe we expected. Coming out of Ohio State, just everywhere. So. Corners are very tight and covered. Xavier Howard, playmate. You gotta love this defense. You gotta love this defense here. So it's scary. It's a team that could beat anybody. It's a team that could beat about anybody here. So, it's a tough team to figure out though. If the defense doesn't make those plays, can the offense do enough to win? It's not really saying they can't or they can. We just, especially the Tua offense, can they bring out some big playability, like big plays here and there? Do they have it? They very well can, but it's probably gonna be a tough team to figure out going forward. It's probably a team that's gonna win big games like this, but they could have those moments where they're a little disappointing. But that's just assumption. I don't know. I just love this defense. That's my takeaway. Don't love Jared Goff. Steelers Ravens. What a wild game this was. Steelers pull it off. Turnovers was that's the game. Turnovers. You can't turn the ball over that many times and expect to win the game. They almost won the game. They actually had a chance at the end. So it's I don't know. There's positives and negatives for both teams here. Steelers, you won the game. You won the game, and then you didn't really play your best game. Offense pretty bad in the first half. The run defense wasn't right. There was some third and longs that it just didn't seem right. So basically, what I'm getting to, you weren't really based on their other games this year. They weren't really on their game, and they still won. So that's kind of the positive. But then very sloppy. Them being off their game, is it because you played another contender? Is this going to show up again? So, a game that if the Ravens didn't, the Ravens turned the ball over that many times, gave you great field position. You actually scored on a pick six, and you still almost lost. That's kind of the negative at the same time. So there's big positive, big negative, kind of that are related. Same for the Ravens, though. Like, you turn the ball over that many times and still almost won the game. So if you just don't turn the ball over, you win the game. Maybe you don't expect to turn the ball over that many times, so you just win the game if you don't turn the ball over, plain and simple. But you turn the ball over that many times. Is that going to continue to come up against defenses like this, against this when you play them again in the playoffs, if you play them again, or teams like this in big games? Is that going to show up? So major positives and negatives for both teams. I mean, mainly you got to talk positive for the Steelers because they won the game. And the adjustments in the second half, they figured out an offense. I mean, this coaching staff, Mike Tomlin, credit Mike Tomlin, credit to those guys, because the adjustments in the second half, I think on both sides of the ball, really, but mainly on offense, they were able to move the ball, complete the crucial, third downs, the big plays. They were able to do that, so that was big. That was big for them. But weird game because the Ravens were able to, that was kind of the knock on the Ravens. Like, they get a lot of rushing yards because it's Lamar Jackson, but in terms of running backs, interior runs, they have not been able to do anything. Ingram gets some yards here and there, Dobbins, Edwards, but nothing good, nothing, no high average, no, explosive runs really. And now you're playing the very best run defense in football, been dominant this year. And now you're able to run. Great games from Edwards and Dobbins. Dobbins looked fantastic. And that's good to see because he's been a little underwhelming, but he's sharing a lot of snaps. Then he just turned the ball over. Not the best game from Lamar. He had those big plays, here and there, big conversions, third down, whatever, fourth down, but not the best game. Some bad decisions, throwing the ball there. So I don't know. What I already said. It's hard to have an exact takeaway because you kind of can play both sides. Like, are the Ravens going to be like that against when they play teams like the Steelers? But then, you can say if we don't do that, we win the game. Like, I don't know which way you want to take. I know there's probably most fans are probably optimistic, and that's their takeaway, the positive one. But it's a little scary that can show up, really for both teams. So Steelers pull it off though. Then the Ravens had actually had a shot there, and they had a 4th and 2, a long completion there. And then they had a shot, and then it was to the end zone, too. Pretty good ball, and it was broken up. A bunch of guys flying to the ball, breaking that up. Some people are looking for calls there. I'm definitely good with no call. There definitely should not be a call on that, whether it was PI or when they had the Cam Hayward injury, and that kind of stopped the clock, and the Ravens had to spike it. That was also the right call, too, I believe. I'm watching a million games at once, but I heard that the casters on that game, the announcers on the game were saying that they were confused by that, but they were going to have to spike the ball regardless. So that made sense. I don't think it affected the game really either. So, yeah, interesting game. I like the physicality of both defenses. The Ravens, they're a really good blitzing team, and it was kind of working in the crucial moments, which they would have done it a little more. But overall, yeah, these teams played really good on defense. The offense has kind of just hurt them. Steelers in the first half just turned the ball over for the Ravens. But that's a big-time win for the Steelers. They remain undefeated. Can't wait to see those teams play again, hoping for less turnovers next time. Chargers and Broncos, classic Chargers. Blow this comeback. Things got to change there. Things got to change. You can't just continue to let this happen, winnable games, and keep your job, pretty much. Herbert had the makings of his best game. This really did. And there's still, I think within the game, he still had his best moments. And and maybe not statistically wise, when it's all said and done, you end up having 2 picks down the stretch. That's kind of the worry with Herbert. Will those pop up? And a lot of these games where he's played great, those kind of popped up. Last week they really didn't. But even against the Saints, that wasn't on him. He played a great game, but Jenkins dropped the bad interception. So those throws kind of come up late in the game, which it's one of those situations where you're not blaming Herbert for losing this game, obviously, but those situations where will they continue to come up? It's one of those things where you worry about, are they going to go away? And you can't have those happen late. But this had the making of his best games, because some of these, the throws he was making, but they have been happening. But I guess the knowledge, some of these back shoulder throws and knowing when to throw the back shoulder, the timing of the throw, and knowing when to leave the pocket, throw on the run. I think a lot smarter of a game up until the interceptions. But some of these throws were not only the big boy throws in terms of the accuracy and the arm, but of the knowledge. And there was times where I'm like saying this guy looks like a polished NFL or quarterback veteran here. It looks ridiculous. Like there's some elite plays, not really just the throws, but elite plays because of knowledge and the arm talent combined. So it was, wow, what's going on here? Throwing in awkward situations, you don't want, in terms of the footwork, him to throw off the back foot or kind of on the move on the back foot. But there were situations where he kind of had to, and he was making the perfect throw. And that's what separates the men from the boys. So it had the makings of his very best game of the year, in my opinion, because of that. I mean, the stats maybe weren't going to show it at the end, but it had the makings of that. And he played well enough to win, but you got to limit the turnovers at the end, so that kind of canceled out being his best game. They were running the ball pretty well. There was enough on offense. I mean, you think 30 points against the Broncos could be enough. So maybe blame the defense a bit. You think there could be a little more pass rush against the Broncos offensive line. I like Gus Bradley as a coach, but yeah, I don't know what's going on, as a defensive coach, but I don't know what's going on to give up that, the third downs. And we'll talk about that in the Broncos side in a second, but it's a tough one. And there's some penalties at the end. I mean, the pass interference call was the right call, and it was a bad one for the defensive back, but I don't know if you blame him too much. I guess you blame him for kind of getting beat off the ball, but I think there was some right calls down the stretch, so people will kind of complain about that. I mean, they blew the comeback. You can't blow the comeback, because of calls, really. So I don't know if anybody's saying that. I thought I saw some people, but you just can't allow that comeback. Coaches, players, you just can't allow it. Broncos, I mean, you got to credit Phillip Lindsay and Drew Lock big time with this. Phillip Lindsay, you wish he had more. He was questionable to play this game. You wish he had more reps, more touches. Because the guy's explosive, hits the hole. I mean, that's the type of running back that succeeds in today's NFL. Sees the hole, hits the hole fast, home run ability. You see why I'm saying Lindsey was their best running back all offseason when people were, saying Gordon. But yeah, so credit to Lindsey. Without Lindsey, do they come back in this game? But Drew Lock, man, making some, he was having a rough stretch, last couple games and going into this game even early on, but the third down conversions, you see the arm strength down the middle of the field, the accuracy and the arm strength, the ball velocity in the middle of the field, crucial, especially the third down plays, crucial. Those are big time clutch plays. So Drew Lock, made the big plays. You love to see that because that's the Drew Lock that I want to see, that I thought I would see. I know it's still a young career, but let's stay consistent now. Let's get Lindsey going a little more. Good to see, guys stepping up, Hamilton and Judy stepping up there in the big moments as well across the middle of the field. So those are tough plays to make, and they're crucial impact plays that decide the game. Third down, if you don't get those, if you don't get one of them, you lose the game. So that was big time. Huge Lindsey guy here. Surprised how much scoring, 31 points. If the Broncos score 31 points, they're going to win the game. But it was close, but you think they're going to win the game. Chargers, you think you score 30 points against the Broncos, you think you probably win the game. Came down to the last play. Kind of close. He got his ass down. So, clear touchdown. But a good play. He was open. Good throw. Good catch. Big time play. It's just another tough Chargers loss. Got to turn field goals into touchdown. Can't turn the ball over late in games to allow teams back in. There was times where you almost ran the ball too much when they had leads. Now they could have ran it a little more because it was working, and you could have ran a little clock. So they're always backwards. It feels like. The coaching changes have to happen there. So credit to the Broncos with the comeback. Some guys really stepped up, looked good there. Wild game. Saints and Bears, another wild game. Just still, it's still kind of hard to believe this game went to overtime, but it's kind of a knock on the Saints. I know the interesting fumble call isn't a knock on the Saints. It was a great play by Demario Davis, and it was a fumble. It should have been a fumble. We'll talk about that soon, though. But I thought the Saints outplayed the Bears this game. I'll say most of this game, but they outplayed them this game. For them to let them back in like that and allow that game to go to overtime is kind of a knock on them. Early on they were playing for field goals. They surprisingly missed a kick. Laces were in, but still Lutz missing a 27-yarder is very shocking. But playing for field goals and not trying to put the game away, and I know it's a good playmaking defense, but not trying to push the ball when I think you can. You kind of wore them out. You wore them out, and then you didn't kind of take your shot. Sometimes they did. It worked. When they were like, all right, we got to score here before the end of the first half. We got to score here. We got to get down the field, high tempo. It worked. And you kind of just I wasn't agreeing with a lot of the play calls either. I didn't mind the Taysom Hill plays. I kind of talked about that during the week. Those types of plays would work against a good defense like the Bears. Maybe not tremendously, but they would do something. But the plays behind the line of scrimmage on crucial downs, third, fourth down, pitches where you got to go backwards from fourth and short. It worked the first time. The next time they have the fourth down, they do the same exact thing, a little pitch to the left. It just doesn't work. I don't like that. Even when it worked, I didn't like the call because it's short yardage. Why are you making it longer? You're turning a 4th and 1 to a 4th and some teams do it worse where they'll pitch it and it ends up being a 4th and 8. The Saints were kind of keeping it lateral, but still it's a lot more than 1 yard. It's 4 or 5 yards you have to go. Even for one of the better playmakers in football, you're asking a lot. So I don't agree with those. Just throwing the ball behind the line of scrimmage when it's 3rd and 4, whatever. I just hate that. So not really the best called game by Peyton, but there was good moments for sure. That took control of this game. So I wish they would have just put the game away. For the Bears' sake, man, I'm just really against Nagy these last couple weeks. It's just pretty poor play calling, insisting on the run when it's just obvious. You got the worst running offense in football. It's just not working. And they actually had more decent runs than you'd expect against the Saints, but still. When the Bears scored, what happened? This is what I'm thinking about this morning. When the Bears scored, what happened? They threw the ball downfield. How do you beat the Saints secondary? What type of defense is this? You throw the ball downfield. When the Bears took a good lead, they were up 13-3 at one point. How'd they score that touchdown, that only touchdown in the game at that one point? They threw a deep ball to Mooney. Then they threw a deep ball to Allen Robinson, touchdown just like that. Allen Robinson downfield was making Marshawn Lattimore look darn right silly. They almost had to switch guys at times because of that. I want to say, Nick Foles, he did have a bad pick downfield, but other than that, downfield, highly successful because he was hitting throws because the Saints secondary deep is not that good. And they didn't do enough of it. They were rather running the ball on 3rd down instead of opening up shots. 2nd and short is a prime time to throw downfield. I think they could have done more of it. I think they could have done a lot more of it. I think Foles was 7 for 10 over 10 yards. Only 2 incompletions over 15, and we're talking over 30 yards. One was a touchdown, and one was, the 2 other were completions, and it set up touchdown or points. So, I kind of bashed them last week for not throwing downfield. They kind of wait until the game's over to do it. Even when they get the ball back in overtime, it looked like it was actually working, though, so I can't rip them a little bit. Anthony Miller dropped the ball, and then Jimmy Graham dropped the ball. So it felt like the Bears really had no business even being in overtime, but then it felt like they're going to win. They could win this game. If there wasn't some drops, they might have won the game. So weird game. But, that call, Cole Kmet fumbled, and then they kind of changed their mind on it without a whistle. I don't know if they even can do that. I've just never seen that before because they changed their mind when they didn't blow the whistle for forward progress. I don't know if that's even possible, even if you think he had forward progress or not. I don't know if they actually can do that without a review. It was an odd situation. I thought, now I think because that one play kind of ruined fumbles for good now. I think people are going to be like, well, was it forward going forward in whatever game? Well, was that forward progress or not? We're going to have this whole BS nonsense that sometimes it will be, sometimes it won't without a whistle. So weird stuff. Great play by Demario Davis, crazy play, and you kind of take it away from him. And the Bears end up convert some plays from some poor defense, and they end up getting field goal range to force overtime. But the Saints got the ball first, couldn't do it. Credit to the Bears defense, and then And the Saints defense stepped up, but there was a couple of drops there for the Bears that could have been crucial. All they needed was a field goal there, and Santos was on, so they could have won the game. And the Saints made some big-time plays. I think the big play of the game was Breeze was about to get sacked, and he kind of made that, under pressure, getting hit, kind of made that throw for that first down there on the game-winning drive there. And that was a huge, major play. If they got the sack there, I think game's either a tie or the Bears win, I think. So that was a major play. Credit to Breeze for that one. For that play. I usually don't like kicking the ball on early downs to end the game, but I do think in this scenario, I do kind of like it. You could have ran the clock a little more in case the Bears got the ball back, but I think it was the right. I think there was more of a chance of the Bears getting a turnover, I guess, than Lutz missing another kick. That was my thinking. So wild game there. I feel like every Bears game's like that. It's pretty wild. Niners and Seahawks. Yeah, the game really wasn't this close. The Niners actually had a shot. They actually had a shot. If McKinnon got that 2-point conversion, they were definitely in the game. Still confident with the Seahawks, but the game really wasn't that close. I don't have a lot on this game. The Seahawks went out and executed on offense early. They started off a little slow, and then they got those big plays. But that wasn't anything surprising. Russell Wilson hitting up DK Metcalf. DJ Dallas, good to see him playing well. That's not surprising. I think the defense really stepping up. DeMontre Moore making a big play, a crazy, freaky read on a read option, almost tackling two guys. That was a monster play. You don't see that a lot. But then getting pass rush, what a concept. Blitz Bobby Wagner more often. There's some freaky plays where he looks like he's the best edge rusher even though he wasn't going from the edge, but just because of the moves and able to get to the quarterback. So they got pressure in this game. Credit to the interior making a push. I thought Poona Ford was everywhere. Really liked that. Really liked the way he played, obviously. But yeah, it felt like the Seahawks were. Turnovers. The Niners are impossible to predict because they have these really bad games where they turn the ball over. They get blown out by the Dolphins. They blow a game, get to the Eagles. There's a sloppy turnover game against a defense they should have no problem against here in the Seahawks. And then they look dominant at some weeks. So I know they were already not healthy, but they're even less healthy in this game with Deebo Samuel out. Tevin Coleman got hurt again with Mostert already being out. So that's tough. But I just never know what Niners team's going to show up. And they play the Packers on Thursday night. They match up well against the Packers. But the Packers might be the better team against the field. But and for both those teams, which one's going to show up? They make it impossible for us to pick. But yeah, not a good game for Jimmy G. Then hurt his ankle. Kittle hurt his ankle. More injuries. Nick Mullins actually looked pretty good. I like they put Mullins in over Beathard. I think people are kind of basing that one game on where Beathard came in over Mullins, and Beathard did look better in that game. But Mullins is, going off the actual sample, all of the samples, Mullins has been more proven. He looked pretty good. Almost got him back in that game. But yeah, too many injuries, too many mistakes for the Niners. Seahawks, impressive with their defense. Easily their best performance on defense. Offense looked pretty good there. And then another game I don't really want to talk about a whole bunch. Is really bad quarterback play. Another NFC East game. Really bad quarterback play. Almost expected from DiNucci. DiNucci's lucky he didn't have a lot of interceptions. A lot of them. Wentz, I don't know what Wentz is. So there's some problems which I don't think are going to go away, which I don't know where they're really coming from, but he has way more time to throw than you would think based on their injuries in the offensive line. There's a lot more quarterbacks with less time to throw. A lot, surprisingly enough, and he just continues to make that sack he was about to take way back, on the one side of the field, and actually fumbled. That was kind of the topper. Plays like that are just so brutal. And then seeing Van Der Esch, seeing him come right at you, you see him on a blitz straight at you, and then you're gonna wind up a really slow wind up while he's right in your face. What do you expect to happen on a play like that? It's a lot of those plays at once. What do you expect to happen? Throwing 2 picks at Trevon Diggs. I like Trevon Diggs. It's tough for corners to play, completely solid, right off the bat. But he's a tough task, covering number ones, in this poor defense. And I think he's made some big plays. He had some big plays in this game. It's a playmaker, and he'll be a playmaker for a long time. So hopefully they can get him some help because he's a good one for the future. So he had a pretty big game. Just not enough offense from the Cowboys as expected. Pollard's better than Zeke, as I've been saying. He has better vision, and he's hitting the whole way faster. And it's one thing if Zeke's kind of breaking tackles and stuff too, but he's not even doing that, which is a tough thing to say. You got to break tackles. It's not. Sometimes you don't have a whole control over it, but it's plain and simple. He's not doing it while he's hesitating, while he's not hitting the hole fast enough. So, I think Pollard's just straight up better. I'll say it. I've kind of been hinting at that for weeks, but people will hesitate. Will be, they're too attached to Zeke. They won't say it, and the team won't say it, but it's the case right now. It's unfortunately the case. Yeah, I mean, the game was over, but taking that safety at the end when you had to, instead of playing the ball, I don't know. I stopped watching the game. I stopped watching the game after that when it was over. Anyways, there's only like a minute left, but I don't know. I don't know what that is. What is that decision? It's just very confusing to take a safety. It's one thing if 2 scores get you a win anyways, but 2 scores, what would that give you, a tie? Not like they were going to get them, but I don't know the thinking there. Like, we're too afraid to punt. Here's some points. I don't know. I don't know. Head scratcher for sure. Eagles get the job done as they should. Defense stepped up at times, getting good pressure. They did drop like 5 interceptions, but they made some plays there. Brandon Graham, Fletcher Cox, these guys made some plays getting after the quarterback. Vinny Curry felt like he was all over the place. They had that where he was down with the ball. That was wild. That strip sack, he was down with the ball, then the ball popped out. An hour later, they scored. I'm surprised they didn't in depth look at that even more. He was definitely down. That could have kept the Cowboys in the game. Would they have won the game? I don't think so. But yeah, just weird things like that. I don't have a lot on this game. There's a lot of games like that this week. It's rough quarterback play. Not the most entertaining game, but that's going to wrap it up for this one. Want to talk about I always forget things. The Steelers did trade for Avery Williamson, which is a big time trade. I thought Spillane's been playing very well for them, so that was a little surprising. But hey, they get pretty good value, and they make they might get better with that. So that's pretty well. But the guy stepping up, playing well for a lot of teams. A lot of injuries. They suck. We see Ronnie Stanley get knocked out of the game. But yeah, there's a lot of things we can talk about. But that's going to do it. We got the trade deadline covered. We got the full Week 9 coverage like every week. So please subscribe. Join us for all that. Smash the like button. That's going to do it for this one. Thanks for watching. Goodbye.